From a former Soviet gulag,
People call this the Railroad of Death.
a prison camp prayer that's changing a nation.
Today, we are seeing the fruits of their prayers. These tribes were once forgotten, not anymore.
Plus, he's one of the most popular chefs in America, who started some of the most popular restaurants in the world. Rick Tremonto shows you how to make a 5-star meal at home on today's 700 Club. Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Japanese engineers are racing to avoid a nuclear crisis. They're trying to cool down the crippled reactor and prevent a meltdown.
Ephraim Graham looks at the aftermath of the earthquake and America's efforts to help Japan in the nuclear zone.
The U.S. has stepped in to help try to avoid an even more serious nuclear accident. An American military truck assisted Japanese fire trucks in spraying water into the crippled unit. But even with the continued efforts, the Japanese government has raised the crisis rating on the situation.
At the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, we have upgraded the danger level from 4 to 5, and we have informed that to IAEA.
The International Nuclear Event Scale defines a level 4 incident as having local consequences. A level 5 is more widespread. Meanwhile, 1 week after the earthquake and tsunami that started it all, many people are still struggling to find food and water. And cold temperatures are making it worse.
It's really cold. Everyone is desperate for some hot food.
After filling all the stoves last night, we completely ran out of fuel.
Operation Blessing is on the scene near the epicenter of the quake, and David Darg reports the ministry is working hard to meet the needs of tsunami victims.
Operation Blessing has bought bags and bags of rice, and they're extremely happy, and they're telling us this is the first rice we've got. The rice has been a huge blessing today, and we're privileged to be serving this town in its hour of greatest need.
Hundreds of thousands are still homeless, and analysts agree it will take Japan a long time to recover from this deadly natural disaster. Ephraim Graham, CBN News.
Well, David is with us now live from Japan via Skype. David, I hope you're far north of that reactor. Tell us where you are and what's going on.
Yes, Gordon, they've upgraded the seriousness of the nuclear scare, and we've upgraded our distance from the reactor. We are actually several hundred kilometers north, so about 150 miles north of the reactor, partly to get away from that potential disaster, and also because the greatest needs are north of the nuclear zone. So we're pressing farther and farther north, and as we do, we're finding even more scenes of just devastating destruction in the towns that we visit.
I've read your blog yesterday, and you're familiar with disasters. You just arrived in Japan from Haiti. You were there in the earthquake in China, rebuilding that village. How does what you're experiencing now compare to other disasters you've seen?
Well, Gordon, I've never seen anything this devastating. Literal, whole cities just completely wiped off the map and deposited 8 kilometers inland. So, you don't even need to be near the water, and you're seeing the fragments of giant houses and offices and just the remnants of life. What once was life is now gone, and I've never seen it on this scale, and it's mind-numbing, to be honest. I've seen a lot of disasters around the world, like you said, but this pretty much is the worst I've ever seen.
I saw a picture where literally survivors were huddled around a fire made from the remnants of a building. There wasn't any place for them to sleep, and they were just trying to stay warm around a makeshift fire. It was like they'd literally gone back to caveman time. Everything was gone around them. What's Operation Blessing doing to help the survivors?
Well, the good news is that we're counteracting that scene of people having to burn wood to stay warm. Today, we delivered kerosene, which is pretty much the most important ingredient that people are requesting. Kerosene is used to fuel heaters in this area, and you have 450,000 people living in shelters. And those shelters are cold. I mean, it's freezing here. Snow everywhere. The snow is hampering the relief operations, but it's also hampering the ability to stay warm at night in a big way. And the kerosene we distributed today is going to be a blessing to about 1,500 people. We also purchased torpedo heaters that burn the kerosene to warm some shelters. And so we're counteracting that cold, in addition to the food supplies and water that we're bringing too. And so for the last 3 days, we've really been making advances, and we've served about 2,500 people with some very essential relief supplies.
All right, well, more relief is on its way. David, stay well north of that reactor and stay safe. If you want to help Operation Blessing, all you have to do is call the numbers on your screen, 1-800-759-0700, or you can log on to CBN.com. There's a place on the website where you can make a designated gift to OB Disaster Relief Fund, or you can write a check and mail it to Disaster Relief Fund, CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Now's the time to act. The farther north we go, the more devastation we find from this incredible earthquake and tsunami. Whole towns being wiped out. People need help. They need just the basics of life: food, water, heat. And we want to be there to help them. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, the refusal of doctors to continue care of a terminally ill 14-month-old boy is calling attention to Canada's government-run healthcare system. Joseph Maracli is now at a St. Louis hospital for a tracheotomy so he can spend his final days at home with his family. Father Frank Pavone helped rescue baby Joseph. He's with an organization called Priest for Life, and he says this story speaks volumes about government-run health care.
But they're adding another calculus as well. Before we decide to pay for that, we're going to evaluate whether this life is worth treating, and that's very dangerous because now we're putting a price tag on human life. And again, baby Joseph tells us human life is worth the sacrifice, the expense, and the struggle.
Doctors hope to do a tracheotomy on that baby by Saturday. House Republicans have voted to ban all federal funding of National Public Radio. The bill would also prohibit local stations from using federal dollars to pay NPR dues. About $8 million in taxpayer money went to NPR last year. The bill now heads to the Senate, where the Democratic majority is likely to vote against it. Criticism of the network escalated last week after an undercover video showed an NPR executive bashing the Tea Party movement. That executive has since resigned. A resolution reaffirming "In God We Trust" as the national motto is moving through Congress. Representative Randy Forbes of Virginia and 24 other members are sponsoring the resolution. It encourages the public display of "In God We Trust" in all public buildings, including schools. It's in response to several attempts to strip God from America's national heritage, like the omission of the national motto in the new Capitol Visitor Center in Washington. Congressman Forbes says Thursday's committee action sends a message that "In God We Trust" is, quote, a bedrock upon which our nation is built. Gordon?
It's certainly, congratulations to Randy Forbes, who's right here in Chesapeake, Virginia. It's nice to see this kind of action coming out of Congress.
It certainly is. Long time coming, but nice to see it. Well, coming up, a story you won't see anywhere else from the only town in the world on the Arctic Circle.
This is the one time in the entire year that you can actually get to this remote part of the Siberian tundra, because what we are on right now is a huge frozen lake.
George Thomas takes us to the church built on the very spot that used to be a Soviet gulag after this.
Coming up later, he's a celebrity chef.
I have this world-class restaurant. I signed my 4th book deal.
Who paid a big price for fame.
In that 1 year, I'd lost my mom, I lost my marriage, I lost my dog, I lost my house.
Rick Tremonto reveals how a voice on the radio changed his life on today's 700 Club.
Do you take fish oil? There's an omega-3 supplement that's better than regular fish oil.
Staying healthy, it's not easy. I exercise regularly and eat lots of fruits and vegetables. I used to take a fish oil supplement too, but then I discovered something better than regular fish oil. Arctic Wonder Omega-3 Krill Oil. It's from the makers of One A Day, so I know I can trust it. The omega-3s in Arctic Wonder both support heart health and are scientifically proven to be better absorbed than regular fish oil. You'd have to take 6 of these fish oil soft gels to get the strength of just 2 Arctic Wonder soft gels.
The Arctic Wonder does not have an aftertaste.
They go down real easy. Arctic Wonder isn't just good for your heart. It also supports healthy brain function and a healthy immune system.
This is one of the products that I plan to take for the rest of my life.
Arctic Wonder is from One A Day and not available in stores. For a special trial offer, call or go online now. Call 1-800-409-7339. That's 1-800-409-7339. Or go online to tryarcticwonder.com now.
Monday.
Miss America 2011 is Miss Nebraska, Teresa Scanlon.
Relive the countdown to the crown. Miss America 2011, Teresa Scanlon joins us live. Plus, a boxing trainer in the fight of his life.
I wrote my wife a note and told her that I was going to take my life.
Next week on the 700 Club.
In 1949, thousands of Russian political prisoners were ordered to a Siberian labor camp to build a railway. Many died trying to finish that. Now a Russian pastor has honored their memory by building a church on the very spot that housed many of those prisoners. George Thomas has that story.
In 1949, Stalin has reason to believe his place in Soviet history is secure.
The railway was the project of Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin.
Stalin's plan was to join the eastern and western parts of Russia. The railway started in Salykard and ended in Igarka. Thousands of political prisoners were sent here to Salykard to work on it.
Among them, Anatoly Marachev's grandfather.
My grandfather was labeled an enemy of the state. He was against Stalin's policies and sentenced to 10 years in a labor camp in Salykard.
1,200 miles northeast of Moscow, Salykard is the only town in the world that's on the Arctic Circle. Temperatures here often plummet to -60 degrees. So it was an ideal place to stash away Stalin's political enemies.
Most of the labor camps were located in the isolated regions of the Arctic, and soon those who began to work on the railway faced these harsh conditions.
Blizzard-like conditions in the winter, millions of mosquitoes, gnats, and parasites in the summer.
After almost 30 years of unparalleled power, Joseph Stalin dies at 74.
Construction on the railway eventually stopped in 1953 after Stalin's death, but the damage was already done. Marachev's grandfather died, along with tens of thousands of other political prisoners.
People call this the Railroad of Death because many could not handle the cold and the bugs.
Historical records show Christians were also killed in the Salykard gulags.
We have eyewitness accounts of secret prayer gatherings, Germans from Volga region, Russian Christians from the Caucasus and elsewhere. They prayed for this harsh region.
Several years ago, Anatoly Marachev moved with his family to Salykard to honor the memory of his grandfather and the countless who died in the Siberian labor camps.
These prisoners prayed that one day the gospel will reach the peoples of this land. Today, we are seeing the fruits of their prayers.
And the fruit is the Good News Church, a thriving evangelical congregation that has risen in the heart of the Siberian tundra, led by Pastor Marachev.
People are turning to the Lord all over this region. Families are being healed, people delivered from alcohol and drugs.
And the location of Pastor Anatoly's church is very significant. You see, back in the early 50s, this exact spot used to hold thousands of political as well as religious prisoners in labor camps.
To have a spiritual center, a house of worship, in this location is not just symbolic, but also strategic.
In partnership with the Association for Spiritual Renewal, which focuses on bringing the gospel to the former Soviet Union, Pastor Marachev uses his church to train the next generation of Christian leaders. Mikhailo Chernikov oversees the program.
We have a program called Schools Without Walls that's preparing young men and women to go into full-time ministry. We equip, disciple, then send out prospective leaders to reach these remote communities in Siberia and around Russia.
Good News Church is also training young people like 25-year-old Marina Shevchenko from neighboring Ukraine to be effective missionaries.
My heart is to share the gospel with the nomadic tribes. Before I can do that, I have to understand their culture. That's where Good News Church comes in. They've been working with these tribes for years.
And speaking of remote tribes, when he's not busy leading his flock, you'll find Pastor Marichev driving across the Russian tundra to reach nomadic villages with the gospel.
This is the one time in the entire year that you can actually get to this remote part of the Siberian tundra, because what we are on right now is a huge frozen lake.
It took us 4 hours today to travel less than 60 kilometers, but it was worth it. These tribes were once forgotten, not anymore.
Members of his church take regular trips to deliver food, clothes, and medical supplies. On this particular trek, Pastor Marichev will share communion with a nomadic family that he recently introduced to Jesus Christ.
I'm so happy today. We are the only Christians in this village. To take part in communion with other believers is very special for my family.
Back in Salikhat, home to some 40,000 people, Marichev is extending the church's influence to minister to orphans, the homeless, and those living with HIV/AIDS. He says this is all part of the desire to continue the legacy of those who came before him, enduring hardship and persecution, to see the gospel preached in Siberia and beyond.
That's what I stand on, those prayers of the prisoners. I believe that God's kingdom will reach the far corners of this difficult land for which our grandfathers shed their blood and prayed a long time ago for.
George Thomas, CBN News in Salikhat, northern Siberia.
Boy, the symbolism and significance of seeing that church built on that spot, taking the gospel to those people, is really a precious thing to behold, isn't it?
And the other thing that's thrilling about it is that you literally are seeing the gospel preached to every tribe. Yeah. And it's happening in this generation. What a wonderful time to be alive.
Well, you all know that Gordon is a chef extraordinaire in his own right, and today you have a friend in the kitchen.
I'm taking back seat. I might chop some vegetables, but
we're gonna get to sample the finished product.
I get to eat, so that's a good thing. Up next, meet celebrity chef Rick Tremonto. He's going to be here. He's going to be talking about his rise from flipping burgers at Wendy's to creating world-class cuisine when we come back.
I was in a lot of pain. I remember feeling, I don't want to have cancer. Why is this happening?
I went to pray with my 10-year-old. He said that he wished he had 2 hearts because one of them was breaking.
I had to reassure her a lot that I'm going to be okay. Things are going to be all right. You know, God's on our side.
This is one thing that Cancer Treatment Center does for people. They give them the courage and the strength to battle cancer.
When you first walk in that building, you almost feel like there's the presence of the Holy Spirit.
It is about the patient. It is only about the patient and what is it that they need and what do they want.
Call now and we'll send you this free DVD that shows you how our very special team of experts and caregivers put you at the center of everything we do. Hope is alive at Cancer Treatment Centers of America.
I don't really see how anyone can get through a life-threatening disease without the Lord in their life. He gives us the strength that we need to carry on.
This week on 700 Club Interactive.
Chef Rick Tremonto is currently working on the opening of what's sure to be another top-notch restaurant, this time in New Orleans. Rick's career has taken him to the top of the culinary world, but he began at the very bottom.
World-class chef and author Rick Tremonto was flipping burgers when he discovered he had a talent for cooking. Rick soon began climbing the culinary ladder and finding work in high-end restaurants. Along the way, he met his wife and business partner, Gail Gand. The two apprenticed with some of the best chefs in the U.S. and abroad.
I started to work with all the guys that I really wanted to work for. Pierre Gagnère and Guy Savoy and Paul Bocuse and Alain Chapelle, and really started to travel France and Spain and Italy.
Rick and Gail started work on a new restaurant called True. It was a huge success, but during that time, they divorced. And although Rick's career was soaring, his personal life was falling apart.
I have this world-class restaurant. I signed my 4th book deal. I'm getting all these accolades, yet my marriage is trashed. In that 1 year, I lost my mom, I lost my marriage, I lost my dog, I lost my house.
Well, please welcome back to the 700 Club our dear friend, Rick Tramonto. He's the author of Scars of a Chef. It's a brand new book. Rick, it's great to have you back.
Always great to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
You came up the hard way.
Yeah, you know,
life was rough, wasn't it?
It was unconventional, you know, but there was some good stuff. You know, growing up in an Italian family, traditional Italian family, and having my grandmothers, you know, keep me in line a little bit, and you know, learning about food. And I'm an only child for an Italian family. That's kind of odd.
Big,
so
yeah.
I'm the one who always got called over to Ricky, help make the gnocchi. Ricky, take out the garbage, you know. So, but it got tough after a while. My parents, you know, they didn't get along very well. They fought a lot. There was a lot of violence in my home, as far as you know, my parents fighting all the time, and so that part was very difficult. And then when I was a teen, my dad went to prison, and we kind of lost everything at that point, and everything just kind of fell apart for me. And you got into drugs and alcohol and a lot of negative things. But in 1977, there was a new restaurant opening in upstate New York that wasn't new to the country, but was new to upstate New York, called Wendy's Old Fashioned Hamburgers. And a guy named...
I've never heard of Wendy's called a new restaurant.
That's right. So that shows how long. And a guy named Dave Thomas, who was there doing the opening back in the day, with a guy named Dick Fox. And I came in and filled out my application, and he looked at it, and he said, well, you didn't check high school diploma. I said, well, I don't have one. Will you still give me an opportunity? Will you still give me a shot? He says, I'm going to give you an opportunity. I'm going to give you a shot. So he gave me a job, and I worked at Wendy's for, you know, a little over 2 years, and thought, wow, I can make a living at this. And, you know, my mom was a cleaning lady and was a lunchroom lady during the day, and my dad was in prison, so it was, you know, it was a need to work. And went to work at a steakhouse after that called the Scotch and Sirloin. And then realized, you know, if I'm going to do this and not go back to get my GED or to go to culinary school or to get any kind of formal education, I need to move to a major metropolitan city and apprentice. And we call it stage, you know, spend time with, you know, chefs in the kitchen. And
That's
back
more
in those,
the European tradition than the American tradition.
Absolutely.
American tradition is you have to go to the CIA.
That's right.
You know,
well, now, but back then, there was still opportunity to knock at a back door and have a chef open the door and say, come on in, I'm going to teach you. And there were journeymanship programs for electricians and carpenters and things like that, but not for chefs back then. I was literally going out into the world and figure it out. So I moved to Manhattan in '83. And started to work, you know, all over Manhattan, and fell in love with food, and understood at that time that I could do this full time. The problem was for me is I never learned how to read. And it was, if you listen to the story when you read the book, I didn't learn to read till I was almost 28, 30 years old. I mean, think about that, taking that journey. Chefs would teach me stuff, and then they'd say, okay, now you go home and pull out your Escoffier or your Larousse, and you study it that way. And I'd go home and I'd kind of go through it and couldn't figure out what these words meant, tried to go to the dictionary to find out what they meant in the dictionary, but couldn't really put it together because I had some dyslexia, but I certainly had some struggles in my education and reading and spelling and all of it. So that was a very, very tough part for me. And then
what kept you going? I think a lot of people would have just said, okay, I've gone as far as I can, and it's time to...
There wasn't a choice, Gordon. I mean, at that point, it was the only thing I had in my life. I had no other, you know, I had no brothers and sisters. I had, you know, my dad was gone. My mom was doing the best she could. You know, it was kind of that moment of, you know,
Did you ever think I could just stay here as a line cook? I don't have to.
No, I think God put that alpha spirit in me.
That drive.
I did have that drive. And by the time I had spent 3 or 4 years in New York working for some of the great chefs like Alfred Portali, and just really being able to see what a real disciplined, educated chef looked like, I was just smitten by it. I just loved it and wanted to do it every day. And watching my parents and watching friends of my parents growing up, so many of them never really loved their job. They'd go to work because they had to have a job or they had to do it. So, the saying is if you find something you love, you never have to work again in your life, right? So to be able to get up every day and go, wow, I can do this every day. Now, granted, there's days that I don't want to do it for 15 hours a day, but that's beside the point. But it's a tough business.
It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, isn't it?
It's a tough job.
You start at like 5 a.m.
Yeah, you start early and you go late, and that's where some of the access and the excess comes in. The reason why there's such a it's a dark industry because there's a lot of drug abuse and a lot of alcohol abuse, and there's a lot of infidelity that goes on in the restaurant business, and that's the part that people get caught up in. Especially even now, there's great chefs and celebrity chefs out there that struggle with abuse constantly, and I think that's one of the things that God pushed me into doing this book, is because I wanted to reach the young cooks. I wanted to reach the kids in culinary school. I wanted to reach the kids that couldn't go to culinary school, that maybe were in a position like I was. There wasn't an Angel Tree Foundation and those kinds of things that have parents that have kids that have parents that are incarcerated. So for me, going to talk to some of those kids and say, don't lose the hope, because once I feel, I have 3 teenage boys, and I always tell them, at the end of the day, you still have to find that hope inside of you, and Christ will bring that hope inside of you, because when you start to lose hope, that's when you feel like you're in a corner and you start making poor decisions at that point.
All right, well, you made it. You got out of line cook, and you started one of the most successful restaurants in Chicago's history, which is quite an accomplishment. But in the middle of all of that success, that's when you really hit the wall.
Yes, sir.
What happened?
I had opened the restaurant, True, and I did a restaurant called Trio before then. My partner at the time was my wife, who was a pastry chef, Gail Gand, got her show on the Food Network. We signed 3 or 4 cookbook deals. And we partnered up with Rich Melman, who is one of the great restaurateurs in the world, for Let Us Entertain You. And we opened this iconic, beautiful restaurant called True. And after 3 or 4 months of building this restaurant, my marriage started to fall apart. My life totally started to fall apart. It became almost a workaholic. It became an obsession. We had a child, our first child, which we thought was going to help the situation, but it was, with all the hours and everything, it was certainly very, very difficult at that time. And we split up, and my mom had died that year, and it was a dark, dark time for me. And I remember, how could I be at this pinnacle of my career, winning James Beard's Awards and Rally Chateau and 4 stars and all this wonderful stuff God has brought into my life on this side, and my whole life is falling apart on this side, and I couldn't feel more hopeless at a certain point. And I remember driving down the Edens Expressway, getting onto the Kennedy, going into Chicago to work, and just feeling, horrible, feeling like I wanted to take my life, feeling like that it was very, very dark, and turned on the radio, and it sounds very cliche, but I turned on the radio and was flipping through the channels, and all of a sudden this voice came on and started to talk about sitting at the feet of Jesus. And I'm like, what does that mean, sitting at the feet of Jesus? And turned up the radio and pulled off to the side of the road because I was so compelled with this story of the Martha and Mary story. Martha, Martha, you worry about so many things, but you don't worry about the things that's most important. And when I heard that, it was like the Holy Spirit just dove into my heart and said, that's what's wrong. You're worried about all this other stuff, but you're not worried about what's most important, which is your relationship with God and your relationship with Christ. And I started to cry, and I listened to the radio a little bit closer and just heard Pastor Gregory Dickow, who's been my pastor at Life Changers for 14 years and still is my pastor today. And and I turned my truck around, drove all the way out, which was about an hour and a half from where I was, pulled into the parking lot, looked at this building and said, this isn't a church. I mean, I grew up a Catholic, and it's like, where's the stained glass and the steeples and the crosses and where? And it just kind of looked like a regular building, and walked in and said, is this a church? And they said, yeah. I said, is there a pastor here? I said, yeah, he's not here right now, but this is where our church is. I said, well, do you have a series called Sitting at the Feet of Jesus? And she hands me the tape series, and she said, and here's a Bible. You're going to need this, too, to go along with it. And got in my truck and drove.
Need the instructions.
And drove back to my house and spent like 2 days in the Word and going through this tape series. And then that Sunday, this was on a Thursday afternoon, and that Sunday went back to that church, walked down, reaccepted my life to Christ, and never really looked back at that point, and realized that, you know, God loves me, God has a plan for me. I've made some really poor decisions that weren't God's fault. So I stopped blaming God for a lot of things. Because early on, I blamed God for everything. It was like, you know, when my dad went to jail, and my drug situation, and we lost our house, and growing up Catholic, you know, you think it was, for me, I thought it was me. I thought I did something wrong. I made God mad, so then I got mad at God. So then we have this mad relationship. And then I started during that time watching, you know, my mom always would watch Jimmy Swaggart and PTL and those programs. And when those ministries fell, then my whole life really in my spiritual walk kind of fell apart, because then I really didn't believe. Then I really felt like lost. And where is this God now? And where is this situation? But when I, you know, walked away from God for almost 12 years at that time, 13 years, when God brought me back to Him, you know, one of the things that He continued to tell me is it's about my relationship with Him, not my relationship through somebody with Him, whether it was a television evangelist or a priest or whatever it may be. For me, God wanted the relationship with me, and men are men, and men will fall, but God is always true to His word, and is no respecter of persons. And you know, that's when I wanted to develop a one-on-one relationship with Jesus Christ, because I knew that He wouldn't let me down, and He wouldn't disappoint me. That man would, but He wouldn't.
I think you're telling a very universal story that we're experiencing in America, where regardless of your Christian background, you've seen a lot of failures, whether it's in televangelists or major preachers or the Catholic Church. We've all seen that. What would you tell people that have literally developed a bitterness over that? What would you say to them?
I would say get some time alone with God, and you know, the Bible says not to test God, but I don't look at it as testing God. I look at it as challenging God and asking God and calling out to God. God, show me, Rick Tremonto, that you're real. Show me the relationship that you want me to have with you. And you have to block out all this other stuff, and there's so much stuff coming at ourselves, and especially our young kids now, all the social media, all the internet, all the disasters that we're seeing in the world, which, you know, really point to the end times and the return of Christ, which is exciting, but yet, you know, sad in certain respects when you see all of it. But you get some time alone with God and ask God to reveal Himself to you. That's the only way I know how to do that, is to make it real for yourself with God through the Holy Spirit, not through all this other stuff. All this other stuff are tools and great teaching tools and people to commune with. But at the end of the day, it really has to be you and God, because at the end, it's you and God, and at the beginning, it's you and God.
And it should be you and God in the middle. and the more you stay you and God in the middle, the more you stay Mary. It's a great message for you, because Martha's busy cooking.
She is. You know, and when it came full circle, that's right.
And she's all upset. Well, God, why aren't you telling Mary to help me?
That's right.
Don't you see all these mouths to feed around here? And He says to her, no, she's taking the better part.
That's right. So I was the Mary.
Jesus talks about the end times, Matthew 24, and he warns, because of lawlessness will abound. and we're certainly seeing that today. We're seeing evil called good.
Yes.
We're seeing good called evil. And we're seeing disaster after disaster in the aftermath. And Jesus warns the love of many will grow cold. How are you keeping that love? I see it in your eyes. I see the light in your eyes. How are you keeping your love abounding?
You know, I think there's only one way, and that's staying in the Word of God. It's having that daily relationship every day. And, you know, my pastor's a great teacher of staying in the Word, reading the Word, knowing the Word, speaking the Word, believing the Word, reinforcing yourself. You know, faith comes by hearing the Word. So constantly enforcing what the instruction manual tells you to do. And, you know, it's so funny, he'll use great little analogies where, you know, when you go bake a cake and you try to wing it, usually doesn't come out, but when you follow the instructions, you know, all the way, it's no good to have a key to a Mercedes if you don't know how to put it in and turn it and start it, you know. So at the end of the day, you have to have some kind of instruction manual, and God gave us His Word. So for me, it's all about staying in the Word. It's staying close to God, and it's, hey, I struggle every day. I struggle every day with stuff, you know, I mean, we all do. So if it's not, it has to be a daily walk, and it has to be a daily relationship. You can't have a relationship with your wife or your kid or your friend, you know, if you see them once a year and have a 5-minute conversation on the telephone with them. It's very difficult to get inside of their life and to love each other when you don't know each other. So my journey becomes is to keep my journey continually knowing God, understanding God, and letting God use me in a way to where I can affect others. And it's not always what I want. It's what He wants. And when you come to that place and you humble yourself and you break it down, then you know you're onto something.
Scars of a Chef, story of Rick Tremonto. It's available in bookstores across the nation. Rick, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
We got more coming. Don't shake my hand goodbye, but I'll shake it anyway. He's going to show us how to create risotto. You're going to have asparagus risotto with truffle oil. This is a world-class dish. You don't want to miss it. He's going to show you how you can do it at home. So stay with us.
When you look in the mirror, can you imagine erasing years of aging? That's what I used to look like. Lifestyle Lift takes only about an hour. See the difference immediately.
I'm Linda. I'm 70 years old. Can you believe it?
Call now for a free information kit. It's quick, affordable, and takes only about an hour. Lifestyle Lift, a breakthrough medical procedure that helps remove wrinkles, frown lines, and sagging skin. Call now for a free information kit. Consultations are free. Call Lifestyle Lift today.
Today, an ounce of gold buys you 2 fine suits. In ancient Rome, that same ounce of gold bought you 2 fine togas. For over 5,000 years, gold has maintained its store of value. Once upon a time, the US dollar was as good as gold because it was backed by gold. But the value of all paper money sooner or later falls to zero. Printing paper money is like an unlimited credit card for politicians, until history cancels their credit line. The good news is that they can't print gold. So when you put part of your nest egg in gold, it becomes safe from politicians crashing the dollar. Find out more about the best performing assets of the 21st century from the best company in the country, Swiss America. Call or visit online now for their free educational kit.
And welcome back to the 700 Club. A geologist is warning that an earthquake may hit the west coast of the United States sometime between tomorrow and next Saturday. Jim Birkeland correctly predicted the 1989 quake that hit California during the World Series. Now he tells Fox News that some of the same signs that preceded that quake are showing up again. He warns that the moon will be very close to the Earth. That increases tidal forces. And he says animal behavior is indicating a change in the Earth's magnetic field, which often happens before an earthquake. A group of young adults from Illinois teamed up with Operation Blessing for a week-long impact trip in Southern California. Teams work with key Operation Blessing hunger relief partners Isaiah's Rock and Fred Jordan Ministry. Isaiah's Rock feeds more than 600 families twice a week out there, and Jordan Ministry serves the homeless population in Los Angeles. Operation Blessing contributes food to both ministries. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website at ob.org. Gordon and Terry will be back with more of the 700 Club after this.
You don't have to go bald if you don't want to. Breakthroughs in medical science have given us the world's first and only permanent solution to hair loss.
They grab it and they pull on it and they let them run their fingers through it, and it's my own hair, you know.
Bosley, the world's most experienced hair restoration expert, has perfected the science and art of hair restoration.
What I need to start doing is carrying a picture around, I think, because people just almost don't believe how unbelievable the quality of the work is.
Bosley can help you no matter what your stage of hair loss. The results look completely natural, and it's affordable on nearly any budget. Call or go online now for your free guidebook, medical report, and DVD, and see how you can restore your hair with Bosley.
You know, you get your teeth fixed, you know, when I get your hair fixed. It's really pretty simple stuff.
You don't have to accept going bald. Choose to do something about it right now.
Call 1-800-998-7348. That's 1-800-998-7348. Call now.
Monday.
Miss America 2011 is Miss Nebraska, Teresa Scanlon.
Relive the countdown to the crown. Miss America 2011, Teresa Scanlon joins us live. Plus, a boxing trainer in the fight of his life.
I wrote my wife a note and told her that I was going to take my life.
Next week on the 700 Club.
All right, we're back with Rick Tremonto talking about how to make risotto. So you're going to get the inside tricks of a restaurant chef. You actually sweat your risotto before.
I do. I like to take the fear out of risotto. Everybody's like, oh, it takes too long to make risotto, and you know, for me, good entertaining. People come into the kitchen at the beginning and at the end, and you know, you want to have time with your guests. So I love risotto, and I love to be able to take onions and garlic and just kind of sweat them a little bit, which means cook them slowly without getting a lot of color on them, just to make them translucent.
Just make the rice translucent.
Right, but we do first. We'll do the onions and the garlic.
All right, onions and garlic.
Yep, but we don't have. This is what's in here. We have some onions and garlic in here that we sweated down, and then we put the rice in. And I can do this the day before. I can do it the morning of, and then I bring it out. If I did it the day before and it's cold, this is at perfect room temperature. I can do this very quickly. And you know, risotto takes different reductions. So if it's going to take you 3 or 4 reductions to do a risotto, or 20 minutes mostly, you know, is really 20-25 minutes to do a proper risotto, and you want everything to take 10 minutes because you don't want to spend all that time in the kitchen, you can do that. And as long as your stock is really hot, I would have sweated my onions and my garlic. I would have taken a little bit of white wine, and I would have sweated all this down a little bit.
So this is homemade chicken stock.
Homemade chicken stock.
And you do it by the ladle.
Yep. And I do it by the ladle, and I also do it by the eye. But the recipe is in there, just enough, just to cover. And you can see how all the grains are still separated.
Now you have to use a special rice for this.
Use a Borio rice, short grain rice, or Carnivale rice, which is another great Italian rice that we use.
And don't forget the nano rice.
That's right. But because spring has sprung, we're doing asparagus. You can do peas, you can do morels, you can do black trumpets. In the summertime, we were just talking about we love to do maybe great tomatoes during tomato season. Oh, yeah. So there's lots of great stuff that we can do. And you want to make sure that...
It's one of those blank canvases you can literally put any ingredient in.
It is. I love it. It's so versatile. But again, the thing that kind of steers people away is they feel it takes too long.
And you always have to
stirring. So if you can do a lot of that before everybody comes in.
Why do you have to stir it?
Because you want that those starches to release. You can see how automatically it's already kind of making its own sauce. You can see the starches, and you kind of keep it moving. You want the grains to stay separate. So that's the other reason why you keep stirring, to just keep them beautifully, right? So now as we're going...
I read an Italian cookbook one time that had been translated. It was actually done by an Italian grandmother. And she said that she actually just puts it all into a pot and covers it.
Covers it. God bless her. My grandmother would have hit me with this wooden spoon. I don't think I'd be doing that.
She said, you know, you don't have to do that. As long as you have 4 cups of stock to 1 cup of rice,
And
you're
again,
okay.
you don't have to sit there. I think in you know, back in the day, you know, you just stir, stir, stir. But I mean, there's certainly to keep the movement and to keep it going.
I've even seen mechanical stirrers.
Really?
Which
For
you
risottos?
plug them in and it does the stirring for you.
Wow.
Which
We're
is
gonna
cheating.
throw-
It's cheating.
It is cheating. We're gonna throw
All
a
right, you
little-
just add the asparagus.
Yes, sir.
So
And again, at this point,
you're
can add
about
anything.
done now.
We're close. At this point, we can add anything.
And all
We can-
that's because you sweated and just let it rest.
I just got about 15 minutes ahead.
So you did your first reduction down, and this was the second one.
This is the third.
Third.
Yep. And we're going to do one more. Well, we're going to
One
taste
more.
it. We're going to find out. We're going to see where we're going to go. And then at the very end,
how much salt do you use?
We're gonna season it at the end because we're going to use Reggiano Parmigiano, and that's how we're going to finish it. And there's a lot of salt in that cheese.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the Reggiano. This would be my salt. But again, I measured all this before. But you can see now how the cheese is going to bring it all together, and also how the butter is going to bring it all together.
This is obviously low cal.
You know what? It's not as bad as you think. And you can leave the butter out, and you can leave the chicken stock out. And I could.
That's the reason we call this comfort food.
That's right. And I used to be able to take the water. I take the water that I blanched the asparagus in, and I'll use that asparagus water, or I can use veg stock. Either way. There's a little bit of mint in here because I love mint and it's spring.
Oh, that'll brush
with
it up.
with the asparagus, a little bit of basil, the Reggiano, and you can see how
Mint
it's
and
all
basil,
coming
that's a
together.
great combo.
Love it. Now my trick is that right at the end, we're gonna pull this off.
Pull it off the heat.
Pull it off the heat. We're
you
gonna
don't want
finish
that
it with
to-
just a little bit of whipped cream, and the reason why, off the heat, so it
wouldn't your
doesn't.
Italian grandmother hit you for that?
She would not hit me for that.
She would.
I think if there
This
was,
isn't cheating to make it creamier?
This isn't cheating.
All right.
This is modern day technique. And I think once she tasted it, she'd be like,
yeah,
wow.
okay, I'll put cream
And
in
look
too.
how beautiful that is.
That
I
is
mean,
beautiful. I think I'm getting hungry.
All right. Smell. And the other beautiful trick becomes a little white.
When's the truffle oil?
We're gonna put it in right at the end.
After you put it in the dish?
Yes, sir. We're gonna put it right in here.
Oh, Terry, please.
Hey, Rick.
If you cook it, they will come.
Wonderful. Yes, it's really. It smells fabulous.
Nice, huh? We're gonna just put a little bit of white truffle oil over that, and we're gonna plate up a little bit. I'm
Wow.
gonna take this, and we're gonna hook you guys right up.
Wow.
Nice, huh? Madam?
Thank you. This is when ladies first is
Yes,
such an
it is.
advantage,
It is.
isn't it? Can I go ahead and taste?
You can.
You're the guinea pig.
You're the guinea pig.
What do you think?
Oh, wow.
Nice.
All
Sir?
right, my
Rick,
turn.
I think the other great
Amazing.
thing with this risotto is you can serve it with chicken. You can serve it as a starter. You can serve it as a starch. You can have it as a meal with a salad. I think there's lots of things you can play with it at that.
Tell us
And
what
then
you have here.
I served a little bit of roast chicken with roast mirepoix. We were just talking about the mirepoix, the fennel, the onions, carrots, and celery. And then we have some beautiful chocolate panna cotta with some orange,
darn.
chocolate and orange, right?
Candied orange?
You love chocolate and orange at the end,
Will
correct?
that ruin my appetite?
You know,
This is
being partners with a
wonderful.
pastry chef for as long as I've been, you always start with dessert and work backwards, right? Eat dessert first, right?
Thank you. Life is short. Yes, sir.
This would be a great dinner, a Sunday dinner with your roasted chicken. You've got this wonderful risotto. And I got to try the panna cotta.
Yeah.
We
Ooh,
got
the white
time, don't we?
truffle oil is
I think we do.
wonderful. That adds just a perfect.
There you go. Beautiful.
Terry, you want a panna cotta?
Oh, sure.
Twist your arm.
Wait, just a little bit.
Here, I'll switch with you, Terry. Oh, you got that.
Thank you. Oh,
There you
wow.
go. I'm going to have some risotto, though.
That is beautiful.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
I think that's one of the best panna
The only
cottas
thing
I've ever
missing
had.
is like a large cup of steamy
Chocolate.
hot coffee.
You want-
Absolutely, huh?
Yes, I do.
Sure you don't want a espresso?
No, I want a large cup of steamy hot coffee.
That's what you want?
Oh, my goodness.
All right, they're
So-
signaling me. We got to.
It's all good.
All these recipes are in Rick's book, Scars of a Chef, and all you have to do is go on
I'm loving this.
Can
This is great.
can we lick this container out when we get to the bottom of it?
I'm gonna have to.
I'll get you a smaller spoon so you can really.
We gotta take a break because I gotta really consume calories right now. We also have a web exclusive interview with Rick. To watch that, all you have to do is go on CBN.com. You'll click on the In the Green Room link, and we'll be back with more food right after this.
Can food be simple?
Come on and...
Everywhere I turn, people are talking about gold prices. Gold has risen to new records, and gold prices have tripled over the last 6 years. In fact, gold prices have increased every year for the past 10 years. Isn't it time you considered adding gold to your portfolio? It's easy to own gold that can be delivered directly to you. Call Goldline now and speak with an account executive. They'll walk you through the steps to get started and answer any questions you may have. Call Goldline for your free investor's kit. It provides important information about gold and shows you how to get started. Our account executives can answer your questions and discuss our products, like the popular European gold coins. If you've been thinking about owning gold but don't know how, call Goldline, a company that's been helping investors like you acquire gold for 50 years. Give us a call today and learn why gold should be a part of your portfolio. For a limited time, we'll include a CD from noted economist Philip Clapwick, who reveals important insights on the gold market that every potential buyer should know. Call today.
Safe daycare is a big priority here in the United States, but in parts of India, children's lives are at risk simply because they lack clean drinking water. Take a look.
Singing songs about Jesus is just one of the things Surmi loves to do with the kids at this Christian daycare center in Western India. She also teaches them how to read and write and prepares them hot meals. But there was one major problem.
I got a water from an open well. The water was dirty, but it was all we had. Many children were getting very sick and had fevers and skin diseases.
All the children and staff prayed to Jesus for help. Soon afterwards, the local pastor came to their center with 2 men from Operation Blessing's Living Waters team. They had great news. A new well was going to be dug next to their daycare center. A hand pump would be installed so they would have easy access to clean drinking water. Surmi and the children celebrated at the dedication and gave thanks to Jesus for the well.
Now we have lots of safe water to use for drinking, cooking, and bathing. It's easy to get water, so I can spend more time with the children. I'm happy, and the children are happy too. I thank our Lord Jesus and everyone else who helped drill the well.
Well, you just cannot imagine how significant, how important having clean drinking water is, and how unusual that is in so many parts of the world. So we want to say thank you, because it's your membership in the 700 Club that allows us to do this kind of work around the world, and it makes such a huge difference in people's lives. Imagine the children that you see in that picture hauling large buckets filled with water. I mean, I don't even know how they pick them up, much less walk sometimes miles just to get that back to wherever they're going to school or wherever their homes are. You have made it possible for this to be available to them on a regular basis, so thank you. Joining the 700 Club is such an easy thing to do. It's a commitment of 65 cents a day, $20 a month, and that may not seem like much, but when we all link arms together, we become an army of people moving forward into the world with the love of Christ and making a difference in lives like you just saw. So please go to your phone and join with us right now. If you haven't yet joined, just call and say 1-800-759-0700 is the number. Call and say, I want to join the 700 Club today. And will you consider doing it using Pledge Express? That's electronic monthly giving. It means your bank does all the work, but it really helps us save some administrative costs. And so our way of saying thank you to you for using Pledge Express is to send you Power for Life teachings each month. We believe that these will touch your life and you'll be touching someone else's life at the same time. So please call now, and you can also do that by logging on to cbn.com. Got some time for email,
It's time
yes?
for some email questions.
Okay.
What's the first one?
This is Mrs. J, or Ms. J, who says, do you have to remove your tattoos in order to get to heaven?
Absolutely not. You don't have to do that. There is a verse in Leviticus that admonishes the Israelites not to be tattooed, that they were a set-apart people and they weren't to be like the people around them, and tattooing has been part of various cultures through time. But we live under a law of grace now, and the only commandment is to love God and love one another. And if we observe those, then we have fulfilled the entire law.
Well, we're not even going to have these bodies when we get to heaven, so...
Isn't that a good thing?
Amen, brother. I'm counting on that one. I don't know. Okay, this is from someone who wants to remain anonymous. They say, just 10 years ago, my sisters and I found out that our dad had been unfaithful to our mother throughout their whole marriage, even to this day, yet he claims to be a Christian. What scriptures could I show him to help him see his lost condition?
This is one where it's going to be tough for you as a daughter to confront, and I would encourage you to love him through it. I know you're hurt, and you're hurt on behalf of your mother, but it's going to be very difficult for you to be confrontational with him. I would encourage you to pray, and there's a specific prayer from Jeremiah chapter 3, where you can pray that messengers after God's own heart will go to your father. And that's a very good prayer to do, and that will honor him and value him. At the same time, honor and value your mother. I'm not asking you to ignore this, nor am I asking your mother to ignore it. But it's just in the order of things, a daughter confronting a dad about sin is probably not going to go over well. So just for your own protection, I do it a different way.
Okay, this is Chuck, who says, what is God's view on premarital sex? When are you considered married in God's eyes?
You're considered married in God's eyes when you make the covenant of marriage and you proclaim to each other in front of God and in front of witnesses that you're married. And that is an awesome ceremony and an awesome commitment to make. God's view on premarital sex is no, because if you have that intimate bond without the covenant of marriage and you break, then you're going to carry that person with you the rest of your life. We leave you these words from 1 John 4. This is real love, not that we love God, but that he loved us and sent his son as a sacrifice to take away our sin.
Monday.
Miss America 2011 is Miss Nebraska, Teresa Scanlon.
Relive the countdown to the crown. Miss America 2011, Teresa Scanlon joins us live. Plus, a boxing trainer in the fight of his life.
I wrote my wife a note and told her that I was going to take my life.
Next week on the 700 Club. Here at CBN, we see amazing things happen when we stand together.
That's why we want to say thank you to the thousands of you who recently pledged to join the 700 Club.
Your monthly gift makes it possible to bring crucial help to those who need it most.
You help heal the sick, feed the hungry, and preach the gospel across America and throughout the world. You've brought health and hope to people in desperate need.
And changed their lives forever.
Just like you did for Samuel, who developed a skin rash that spread into ulcers all over his little body. The nearest clinic, a 2-hour bus ride away, couldn't help Samuel. That's when you sent a medical team to his village. He received the medicines and care he needed to save his life. You were the answer to this family's prayers.
So please, watch for this mailing and send in your pledge. This year, millions will know
the love and saving power of Jesus Christ.
And that only happens because you were there.